Yeah, I asked
Here we go,
Google about.
and we are live. Take it away.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on this 28th day of April, 2025. Now, before you clicked on the link to join us, you existed in a state known in quantum physics as superposition. So, to us, you were both there and not there, both a listener and not a listener. You were all Schrodinger's Shakuhachi enthusiasts, if you will.
Hmm.
By clicking, you made it possible for us to observe your screen name, revealing that you are here, a live listener in this, the 35th Taidu Studio live stream. And we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for collapsing your wave function for us today. And despite our non locality, allowing your consciousness to become entangled with ours in this brief moment of eigenstate coherence. As always, our host today is Sean, Uncertainty Principal Head. Say Ohio Sensei.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
And I'll be your quantum observer, Linus Spooky Action at a Distance, Callahan. We'll be answering your questions on Shakuhachi and quantum physics, if you like. And we also have some great topics on tap today from our Discord channel. So, how are you today, Sensei?
Well, after that, I'm not sure how I feel.
Well, I think you've chosen your name after the work of Heisenberg, and that seems fitting.
Hmm. Yes. Well,
You're fully versed on the uncertainty principle, right?
very
You're able to
versed, as you can see, very versed. Uh, so I just posted a link in the chat. For those who are members, who have been members, you guys can watch that video. You have an invitation to the Taibo Festival. So go ahead and save that link for later. Open that onto another screen. And if you're interested in coming, you can just shoot me a message or a DM on Discord, and we'll get you all set up to come and hang out, meet the full-time studio members. The festival's happening now. This is the third one that we've had, or that we will be having, and it's going to be hosted actually at my home. So you'll see that, and there's also I do have an information video about it too. So I will post that in the chat as well momentarily, so you can kind of see everything that's going to be going on at the festival as well. And Linus, you're going to be joining us, right? I know the
Yeah.
journey is far.
Yes, it's about 30 minutes on the train every day, but yes, I will be there every morning, and we will have a good time. I think the new venue is going to be a real blessing. It's going to give us a lot more sort of control over our classroom setting and a lot more opportunity to be noisy without worrying about
Mhm.
upsetting, hotel guests or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, what I really am looking forward to is that at the end of the day, I get free manual labor to clean my house.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
gonna
it's
be
not bad.
awesome.
It's not bad. And plus, there just at your place, there's lots of rooms and lots of areas to
Hmm.
kind of break out. And if someone needs practice time, or there's somebody, I don't know what you call it in shakuhachi, in the band world we call it sectionals,
Sectionals,
right?
yeah. Yeah, no, we have this back studio that's in here. So if anybody wanted to come out and just they say like, I just need to practice, I just have that itch. And we also have a
Yeah.
secondary piano room as well that could be utilized for that, um, and whatnot. So yeah, definitely some options here. And so I'm really looking forward to having it here. We do have a number cap. We can't go over. I I think I'm not going to go over 15, but I think I could extend it to 20 and not piss people off. And when I mean people, I mean my wife. So we'll probably go
Right.
with probably no more than 20. And already half of that is filled up. So if you are interested, please let us know right away. The festival will be the last Saturday of October to the first Saturday of November. Got a lot of really exciting guests who are coming this time. Really high end professionals in the world of koto. Some of the best koto players, actually. Uh, some of the best shakuhachi players, with another new shakuhachi, new shakuhachi guests that I'm hoping to have. And we actually have the if it works out, we will have the top Tozan player in the Kansai world coming out to give a talk as well at the festival. So some really high
Fantastic.
hitters. So yeah, it's going to be super cool. But all that Taibo Festival stuff, that's cool and that's fun and whatever. But apparently we have a lot of Discord conversation today about Shakuhachi. So I have my Shakuhachi ready. I'm ready to answer the questions. Linus, take it away.
All right. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in the chat. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, share this video, all that good stuff really helps out the channel. We have to appease the algorithm.
Yeah.
So,
And we need to do a giveaway again pretty soon. So I'm gonna call Yozlan up to get another beginner flute to give away. So stay tuned for that too. If you're interested in winning a flute, join the channel, be in the membership, all that good stuff.
And since you mentioned that, do you want to plug all the new flutes that are currently available?
Oh my gosh, we have so many new flutes available. So I
Right.
mean, we have I just uploaded 3 new beginner flutes. One of them is already gone. I uploaded the Inyol flute, that they're really beautiful, kind of smoked bottom and the regular top one. That one's gone. So I would like to advertise them, but half of them are sold. So there are still flutes available on the website. So please go and check those out. I have links below, and it looks like the yen is kind of still balancing back and forth. It's kind of jumping between that 143 and 139. So the prices are still good, but it is going to get more expensive soon because the yen is gaining a lot more traction. Some of the flutes, when we posted them, it was like 150 to the like 150 to the dollar, right? And now it's like a 9% difference. So
Wow. Well, and we've already got one comment. Italo Rodriguez says he needs that flute. So hit us up. We'll figure out a way to we'll figure out how to get it to you. All right. So coming from our Discord, we actually had kind of an interesting discussion going over there that was originally posted by our own Robin Ryugo, Dragon number 5. That's what that means, right?
what does what mean?
Ryugo, Dragon number 5.
Oh, well, Ryugo is this singing dragon. Like it's another type of like the goal is a rare character, which means kind of speech in a sense.
I don't know. I think Dragon number 5 is easier.
Fine, Dragon number 5.
So yeah, from Robin, he asks, "What is your biggest challenge with the Shakuhachi at the moment?" And he had all these different thoughts on what it could be. It was breath control or consistent pitch and tone issues, things like that. And as usual, my answer is not on the list. My biggest problem is I scores are too small. I can't read them.
Yeah, well, we're working on that.
Yes, hopefully soon I'll be able to read those scores again. But yeah, that's my biggest problem right now, is that I have to sit like 6 inches from the score to be able to read it.
All right, well, let's hit the first one. So go ahead and read the first one off again, and then we'll the first problem, we'll talk about that problem first. So whichever order.
He said, "What is the biggest challenge with the Shakuhachi?" And I think the first thing that people mentioned was breath control.
Okay,
like
so
breath
got it. So so breath control is a really tough one because it's not just one there's not just one variable to creating like a longer sound, because people are concerned about is they're not able to have like a 10-second 15-second note, right? So you can and you can exercise, like you can use one of these, right? You can use one of the Voldines, right? It's not a bong. Could make a pretty good one though. But the thing is though is that you're not going to get any more like expansion in your lungs. You can't make your lungs physically bigger, but you can train them to get to get more air in, to open them up. You can stretch and so on and so forth, but that isn't going to be like the biggest thing. It does help, right? So I'm not like just wasting your time by saying you should do this. You should do that. So use the Voldine, slowly inhale the air and try to maximize the work out the muscles of inhalation and exhalation. Part of that, keeping the bottom of the core, is also a variable. But I think that there's two of the aspects of the variables I think that people mess up the most. Now, I've asked this question before, and maybe see if you remember it, Linus. See if you're listening. Are you
Mm,
listening? Okay.
I'm
Um,
listening.
what is the point where singers, vocal singers, if there was other type of singers, where do they lose the most air?
Where do they lose the most air? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
yeah. Where are they most ineffective in their air?
That's a good question.
It
I
happens
would
on.
imagine.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I would imagine that they lose the most air when they're producing the greatest volume, like when
Yeah,
the dynamics are the highest.
yeah, you would think that, but it's not. It's not the point. It's on certain consonants where they lose the most air.
Mm,
And so the consonant
that
where
makes
is like the word how, that they push out so much air, and all of that air that they could be using is gone. It's almost instantaneous, and it's a matter of like 3 or 4 seconds that we're talking about. Now in shakuhachi, it's the same thing that happens. People breathe before the note actually starts on the shakuhachi. And you might go like, okay, well, what on earth, like, magic science are you talking about that you can get a note before you even breathe onto the instrument? Well, when we first start that sound, we have to remember that the sound doesn't start from air coming out, like from pushing from the lungs. We don't to get our sound. We slowly close the armature and use the excess air that's in the oral cavity. Then once that sound starts, then we blow the air out. And even just that little point will save you a bunch of air. And you'll be able to expand your notes by a couple of seconds. Just that one little bit. So many people start here. And all that air that they just came out with that huge embouchure, I mean, then they've already lost seconds, 3, 4, 5 seconds. Here, though, now I have so much more air to use.
That's interesting, and as far as the singing side of it goes, I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, that is definitely a problem. It's so it's you want to avoid being like Stewie from Family Guy. Why?
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 What?
Quinn.
I think one of the videos I did was in the Shonen series, because in the first Shonen series, like Chuden and Okuden, I don't use the memes so much, but in Shonen I make it a lot, like, really fun. I put a lot of those cultural memes of our time, and in one of them I go, so why on earth would you want to do that? And then I think it's uh is it what's his name, the really crazy bug-eyed preacher
Is it
who's,
Kenneth Copeland?
yes, it's Kenneth Copeland. He goes, why,
Why?
why, why?
Why?
And it's, I got like I have like 10 different clips of him just backed up, like one after the other. Not one of my proudest moments, but it was damn funny. Okay,
It is
and
funny.
I
It is
was,
funny.
I really enjoyed, actually, I really enjoyed putting a lot of the memes in the Shonen series. I do regret a little bit of not putting them into the Chuden and the Okuden, but there's too much work to be done in those later levels that I didn't have time to do that stuff. So if you're interested in what we're talking about, join the membership and join the Shonen series and start learning how to play shakuhachi, and you'll see exactly what's going on. Hey, what's going on, Gabriel? It's good to see you in the chat. So, but there we go. So there's your answer for some of the breath control stuff. Let's hit another point.
Yeah, that that reminds me that
Mm-hmm.
at some point I wanted to, it's like further down the list for today, but discussing the idea of humor and music,
Mm-hmm.
and that the shakuhachi. I mean, the shakuhachi does not have a reputation of being like hilarious, right? We
Which is
have a reputation
ironic.
for being.
It's ironic if you're gonna say something is like related with Zen. I mean, Zen things are like, there's a lot of great humor in Zen, but
There
you know,
is.
but yeah,
It's
it's overly serious, and I
yeah,
think that's also a thing though. What happens when stuff becomes academic? So, for example, that's sort of like the image of having like Mozart and Beethoven. It's like everything's very serious. But like in the meantime, Mozart wrote a piece for as a commission, which is "Lick My Arse." So, I mean, So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, okay, for humor and music and whatever, let me tell you my favorite story about Mozart. There was a commission that he received, and it was supposed to be for French horn, like probably like a solo of some sort with an ensemble. So no one remembers the piece and when they talk about this story because it's not the important part. But when
Mm.
Mozart was meeting with the French horn player, he just didn't like the guy, and they just did not hit it off. It was, heads butting heads. So on the day that he presented the piece to him, he presented the French horn player with his score in yellow ink. So,
Oh my goodness.
yep, yep. And if
Yeah,
you,
I think
yeah, and if
that's
you,
a topic.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, Sensei. Go
And
ahead.
if you really want to like have a very, like, you want to feel very uncomfortable, read the Mozart letters to his sister. They are
Oh dear.
shocking. Absolutely
Oh dear.
shocking.
Well, yeah, I think that humor in shakuhachi, or doing, like, I try to imagine who is the Victor Borga of shakuhachi, and there is no answer. Like, nothing really springs to mind as who is a funny shakuhachi player. And I'm not even sure how, like, traditional listeners of traditional Japanese music, I'm not sure how they would react to somebody who was, as Victor Borga was an incredibly uh, virtuosic piano player, like incredibly
Yeah,
talented piano
that's
player, but also
yeah.
hilarious. And I'm not sure how Japanese listeners of Japanese music would react to a shakuhachi player who was also hilarious.
Um, I can tell you how the kids react because I use a lot of humor with younger crowds, especially like when I go
Sure.
to, like, they absolutely love it. But what I think is really funny though is that a lot of times like the really strict older teachers also find it like charmingly funny too. Like they're very much into it. I've never kind of tried that with like a larger crowd in Japan. But humor in conversation is a huge part of my performances when I play. And even I think people really enjoy that sort of stuff. I don't think that again, I think this is more of an academic issue. Like in the academic areas, I think people would find it very distasteful, but the public is very much into it because they want to.
Sure.
They're there to be entertained, not to be culturally uptight.
Yeah, I've recently sort of thought about the idea of how you would put together shakuhachi and rakugo, and like
Oh,
telling.
I've done that actually.
Yeah, see, I think that's something that the shakuhachi world could definitely use. There's a bit of stiffness, shall we say? I'm going to be polite. Shakuhachi world can be a bit stiff.
Sure. So I did a Rakugo concert, and I tell like when I did that, I used like those types of storytelling and like quick left turns when you present things. And so there's the one thing that's nice about the Japanese language and with the English language that actually matches up is that puns work really well in both languages. Now,
Yeah, for
puns
those of
in
you who aren't familiar, Rakugo is kind of Japanese storytelling, but it's also almost sort of Japanese stand up. It's comedic storytelling generally.
yeah, some of them are really kind of like silly, like they're not even like really that funny. But they're a lot of it is also self-deprecating too, and self-deprecating
Yes.
humor goes very very well in Japan. Oh, I mean, kind of is everywhere too. I mean, like the most famous self-deprecating uh, comedian I can think of is Rodney Dangerfield, whom, by the way, was
Yeah.
featured in one of our articles on SeanHeadMusic.com. So you should read that article.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff, actually. And the what is the name of the Western Rakugo artist? Sunshine. Uh, what is his name? Anyway, there is a Westerner who has recently become quite famous as a Rakugo performer,
Yeah, Katsura
and
Sunshine.
after years of study, and it's quite interesting. And he's kind of a nice liaison because he brings people into the Rakugo idea in English, so for those who don't speak Japanese can kind of get what's going on. But Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and it's
Yeah.
something that I'm totally spoiling a future live stream by broaching the subject here.
Well, maybe we'll invite a Rakugo artist to come on and do a live stream with us. But before that happens, let's get to the next Shakuhachi question we have in the Discord.
Yeah, so in that same discussion, of course, the next thing that
Hmm.
came up was the issue of pitch and of ear training. Like
Uh,
those of us who don't have a good ear to start with, how do we develop it?
okay. The way to develop your ear the fastest with like the no BS method is start singing and just start singing all of your favorite songs that you know that I'm sure you already do, but just do that. You have to, if you're not going to be able to produce the note from nowhere, meaning like just vocally, you're not, doesn't mean you're actually able to hear it. So it starts first with production, and then you can hear the sounds afterwards, and then write things down, hear intervals and stuff like that. But the main thing to that at least what I started working with one of my students who was struggling in his ear training course. So what I taught him is I taught him that music is relative. So everything has a tendency. So there's only one pitch that does not have the tendency, which is the nuclear pitch or your foundational pitch, the tonic. That note
Mm,
has stability. Everything else around that has direction in it. The Japanese terms for this, how they would talk about this is, of course, I would just forget it, just as that. So I built up all that suspense to tell you. I just lost the word for that. But
well,
that I want to
my
say,
Japanese is not good enough to help you, so
but
like,
yeah, but anyways, centripetal force is the term that they use. Of course, that's translated in English, but they call it centripetal force. Um, which is a very weird way of using that astronomical term, but nonetheless the idea is that there's like that those there's some notes in Japanese music that can have more than one stable note, but in Western music we have that one note always coming back to the tonic. So if you
right.
think of, like, for example, if we go to C major, now the C, we're happy there. Now if I go to D though, that note, that lay do, it wants to go down. It has a tendency to move back to the tonic. So then you have mi re do, that wants to go down to the do, right? It wants to go down a tonic. Even more tendency, it wants to pull even further or harder down. And by the way, because that note has even more pull down, the note actually becomes flatter. So F in C major is not actually perfectly F, it's flat. Then the G is a jumper, so it jumps to C, or then you have A, that note wants to go up, and then B also wants to go up. So if you think of tendency tones when you hear notes, then when you hear something, you can hear like just that C major scale. You go, that's that sol do. It wants to jump up to that and resolve. Or if you go that de do, it wants to descend downwards. So if you think of music more as relative rather than trying to like develop a perfect pitch, which is usually how people go into it, they're just going to memorize the frequencies, it won't work. You have to look at music in its relationship, how it's related to itself. And that's the way to do ear training. So first, start with singing all of your favorite tunes. Even starting with just singing Mary Had a Little Lamb will be very helpful. And then playing that out on ear and your instrument, and then doing all the other ear training stuff and whatever. So it's a good question, and people don't necessarily like to hear the answer because it's a lot of work, but ear training is not easy.
Yeah, we have one comment there. Gabriel Alford is saying, "I hate ear training."
he's
Yeah,
he's at university right now and probably in the midst of oral theory classes, so I can feel the pain.
yeah. I think the in vocal music, I think everybody hates sight singing,
Oh
which
yeah.
is a big part of ear training and being able to hear what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah,
and
and
it is actually a
at u
wall. It's a real wall for me. I really
at
struggle with it.
university, everybody is required to do sight singing, and at the Cleveland Institute of Music, we had to sight sing toned rows by the end of our 4th year.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
for those who don't know what toned rows are, they sound like that kind of stuff. It's full atonal. So we'd have to sing that and also dictate, and then we had to do like complex harmonies and things like that too. The 4 part, I think the hardest one for me was always 4 part dictation. So the teacher would play a 4 part dictation on the piano, and then you would have to write out all 4 parts in the choral style, and then also label the chord functions below, and that's all by ear. You get the starting top note and the starting bass note, and then that's it, and everything else you have to fill in.
Ugh. Wow. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, and then the teacher would go. I remember at my final, at our final for my senior year, the professor said, "Okay, we're gonna hear it 3 times," and then so he played it once, and he played it twice, and then he played it 3 times. And at the end of it, we're all just like, "Oh shit!" And then one of the other students goes, "Teacher, I think you might have messed up one of those chords. I think we need another listen." And he goes, and he goes, "I think you're right. I will play it once more. My bad." And it's that was who I can't remember who that student was, but praise them.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant strategy there.
Yep.
Yeah, man, and see, the conservatory experience is so different from my experience, which was, punk rock, and
Sure.
Lou Reed said if it's got more than 3 chords, you're just showing off.
Well, that's also a product of your generation too. It wasn't always like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So, but that's the general gist of ear training, like really just compacted down into like simple parts. But you really should take it as like take the time out seriously to train your ear as best you can by singing music and playing with drones and stuff like that. If you haven't yet, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're interested in winning a flute and getting access to all the perks that we have, join the membership. All right, let's get to the next question or next issue that people are having.
Well, yeah, I'd like to remind you, those of you that are in the chat, if you want to chime in on this and add your questions on any Shakuhachi related topic, or if you want to, talk about what's your most difficult thing in Shakuhachi right now, be happy to address those. And I think the other point that was discussed a bit in Discord, has been discussed a bit recently, was the difficulty of we've talked about this at great length. I don't know how much more we can add to it, but the difficulty of having the bad Shakuhachi day.
Yeah.
And that's, it's we've talked about it a lot, and you've got a video called The Great Reset,
Hmm.
which is very helpful, and I'll pop the link up for that in just a moment. But if you want to, just briefly touch on how
Yeah.
to fix and how to avoid the bad Shakuhachi day.
Well, there's no avoiding the bad Shakuhachi day. You only embrace it. And, that's just the thing. First, a word of encouragement. When you feel like you're stressed with Shakuhachi, when you feel frustrated and you feel like you're not making any like progress, that's the sign that you're about ready to make the progress, like the really big jump. And it happens. It will happen really frequently in the beginning, right? So you'll feel like you're frustrated every other day. Well, it's because you're learning so much and you're jumping to the next level, like these kind of micro jumps from one place to the next, right? Which maybe I wasn't able to make a sound, now I'm able to make a sound. Okay, I wasn't able to make a sound on that note, now I can make a sound on this note. And so before I could only play 2 notes, now I can play 5 notes. And so you're jumping these levels constantly, so you feel a lot of frustration. Then that will start to plateau and you won't have as many jumps. The jumps then start happening like maybe once a week, and then maybe once a month, and then once a year, and so on and so forth as you continue to get better and better. So if you're feeling the moments of frustration, that's normal. That's actually a really good sign. If you never feel frustration, or if you never feel like you're struggling with the instrument, You need to work harder, right? You have to challenge yourself more. Now, what happens when you have that really terrible shakuhachi day? It's not necessarily just the frustration of not being able to get better or to fix things. It's that like you pick up your instrument and then like magically there's no sound that happens.
Mm,
This is something that happens to all of us, including myself. And I've had days where I wake up, everything's going great, right? Make breakfast, have a nice cup of coffee. The birds are outside singing. I'm like, wow, there's not a cloud in the sky. And then I come to the studio and I picked up a flute and it just goes. So what do you do?
yeah.
Well, in the Great Reset video, what I talk about is basically taking it to the most absolute fundamental skill sets. Okay, which is basically the basic tones, and even just starting with Hinomaru, putting the drone on, and just playing a soft like mezzo piano, not like which means moderately quiet straight tones, and just play through those notes and just get as perfectly in tune as you possibly can, and then do some rows, and then stop, walk away, come back. A lot of times it becomes a lot better. It's not fixed, but it's a lot better. So sometimes we just need to have those reset days to go back to the fundamentals. So check out the Great Reset video if you ever have that problem. It's one that you can constantly go back to engage with.
Yeah, you're talking about the interval, like taking a little break, walking away, and coming back to it. I find that to be really helpful. Even just in learning new repertoire or rehearsing, is you reach a moment where maybe it's not that things have completely gone to crap, but just things are starting to sound a little stale or a little
Mm-hmm.
mechanical, or the feeling's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes just 5 minutes of walking away, like I'm gonna out myself as a huge nerd, but like I have Rubik's cubes, and sometimes I just set my flute down and I will quickly run through this, solving a three by three.
Mm.
It takes me 2 or 3 minutes, and then pick my flute back up, and I can come back to things refreshed a little bit. And
Yeah.
so that interval away from the flute, particularly when things aren't going well, can
Hiking
be very helpful.
outside does it for me. Like if I can go on a short little walk or a short hike, especially if I'm gonna get out in the forest and stuff, that really does it for me. And I'll even take my
Yeah,
flute with me and play a couple basic tunes, and then come back and I'll feel a lot better. So,
yeah, and the other thing with these feelings, I remember when I was new on the instrument, feeling like, well, that's it. I can't play anymore. This sucks. And I just have to remind yourself that this will pass. Not to keep beating your head against a wall, but to keep gently coming back to it. It will pass. And sometimes the days that start off really terrible often end with really good progress. You just have to kind of get past the bad stuff.
yeah, as Heraclitus once said, you can never step in the same river twice. And so
Mm,
that being said, that everything changes, this too will change.
yeah, absolutely. And as Abraham Lincoln once said, you can't trust everything you read on the internet.
Yeah, wise words indeed. He's actually a vampire slayer, right?
Yeah. I was so excited about that movie, and that movie was so bad.
It was so bad.
So bad. I wish that I could knock down trees with one swing. That
Well,
pretty darn cool.
look,
Um,
it's because you're not 6'8", and if you leverage it properly with physics, then you can do that.
yeah, yeah, and that's totally not going to shatter the hickory handle of your axe. This is this is something that bothers me in movies and TV shows. A thing that is improbable is cool. A thing that is impossible ruins the story,
Well,
right?
my favorite scene is from Fast and Furious 7. I don't remember the
Oh
name of
boy.
it. And they jump out of a plane in the cars. They spin, they get into like a big fight, shooting guns, flip the car 1,000 times. Vin Diesel gets out. The shirt is clean pressed. It's like so it's like everything else was like, oh sweet. And then you see the shirt, you go, bullshit. Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. The best example for me is like Indiana Jones. They fall out of the plane and they use an inflatable raft to land on the slope of the mountain in such a way that it doesn't kill them. Is it improbable? Yes. Is it impossible? I mean, strictly speaking, no. It's extremely improbable, but it is possible. But then in another Indiana Jones film, he jumps in a refrigerator and is basically at ground zero of a nuclear blast. And the refrigerator is blown, out of the house that it's in and down the street. Is it possible? No. Just no. And that's the problem. That's the difference between a good action sequence and one that's just completely silly.
Hmm.
But anyway, this
Yeah.
is not this is not our topic for today. We're not talking about Shakuhachi or quantum physics now.
Oh,
As
because
it
let's
say.
get back to it.
Do you want to talk about quantum
No,
physics,
let's
or
do
you want to talk
Shakuhachi.
about? I'm really disappointed that someone hasn't jumped online and asked us a quantum physics question.
It
Because
will
I
get
was all
it will get there. Don't worry. Just give them time.
I'm all
Look, the equations are difficult. Okay.
I'm all set to talk about quantum entanglement and
I really think that you're more interested
quantum.
in talking about like metaphysics than quantum physics.
But see, that's the thing, is that they're finding out that consciousness may have a lot to do with the formation of reality, and it's physics and metaphysics are getting real fuzzy at
Mm-hmm.
this point. So, anyway, the other shakuhachi topic that I have on the docket for today is a brief discussion of the trailer for the Ghost of Yote that just came out,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
uh, and how they apparently didn't use real shakuhachi in the soundtrack, which
I
is
think it might be. It's hard to tell because again, sometimes these systems are becoming so good that they're really
yeah,
hard to tell the difference between like and a lot of them are what is it's not processed they
compressed.
no they're sampled. So
Oh, right,
it actually is real shakuhachi, but it's not a real player playing it, right?
yeah.
So like because they've manipulated and changed it, and honestly, the whole entire thing of Ghost of Yote right now is that it strikes me as a spaghetti western. It doesn't
Yeah,
strike me at all as a sort of a like a like the thing that made Ghost of Tsushima is like, okay, look, there's nothing historically accurate about it, weapons and armors and nothing, but it was cool and it was super Japanese, and that's what people liked. Yote, it's not like that. It feels kind of like it feels like the Wild Wild West just set in Edo, Japan. Also,
yeah.
the thing that I have the biggest beef with is that there's actually only one little shakuhachi part in the main theme. Right? Because
Mm.
and it's shamisen. It's supposed to be the thing, and there's not enough shamisen in the music either. But the melody is super easy. All it is, and that's it. Then like the rest of it, there's not any like major shakuhachi thematic stuff that happens in that tune whatsoever. So musically, I was much more impressed with this stuff from Ghost of Tsushima than I am with Ghost of Tsushima. That being said, only that track is out.
That's true. There could be more, and we also have a pretty recent entry in the Japanese historical video game thing with Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
And I haven't really heard much discussion of the soundtrack of that. I haven't really
So
even tried to
that
listen
one I
to it.
did listen to, and I was going to try to find some stuff to play from that. The problem is that only one of the tunes has shakuhachi in it. I notated it out. So let me pull that up actually. Yeah, okay. So the tune from Assassin's Creed that has shakuhachi in it is called Matters of the Heart. This is the only one um, that has real shakuhachi in it, and I think it's one of the producers playing it. And so,
Hmm.
and okay. That being said, he's not a professional, so it doesn't sound that good. That's not my biggest issue with it. My biggest issue is that like 75% of the tracks use sampled or like sort of like AI generated shakuhachi sounds. So the melody, and which is actually not a bad melody, have some strings that happen, then that repeats. So, and then some of those ideas will repeat again in the piece. Now, that's the only track in there, and it's not even the most like the melody's not bad because especially as you fill it in with all the harmonies, it's really nice. You get this kind of modern Japanese feel in the piece. Great. But it's only one track.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to have something happen like what happened with Ghost of Tsushima, because Ghost of Tsushima was such sort of a bounty of shakuhachi or almost hitiyogiri style stuff,
Yeah,
and
I think
it's
that
really hard to.
well, the thing is though, it would have really been cool is if it actually was Hitiyogiri because that would have been the same time period.
Right.
And the Hitiyogiri was played by lots of people, by aristocracy, monks, samurai, commoners. Everybody played. Hitiyogiri was very popular.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and the pieces feel like hitiyogiri pieces and even though we play
oh
them on shakuhachi, they
yeah, yeah,
feel
yeah.
like.
They have that sort of like that sort of vibe to them, as in being really short. The mode doesn't fit like the that sort of Miyakobushi mode that we've mentioned a couple times in the channel. That doesn't fit into the Hitayogiri, but the ones that are more major sounding, we'll say, those would fit really nicely on the Hitayogiri.
Yeah, I think that since we haven't mentioned it lately, what is the situation on someone who might want to learn to play the hitiyogiri?
Oh, yes. So we do have an upcoming class for that. So let me pull up those that stuff there. So there is another chance to learn how to play Hitayogiri. Let's see. I'll just post the journal post about it because that will probably be the easiest. Here it is. So next chance of learning it. So the Oshige class covers all of in the world of Hitayogiri we have multiple modes and there's 5 modes in the Hitayogiri. In Shakuhachi, modern Shakuhachi, we use 3. Um, and so there's this mode called Oshiki, which means summer, and it's the pitch A. So that's the class that we're going to be starting with. The Oshiki class covers all the pieces in the summer mode as well as the basic playing and including techniques specific to the Hitayogiri. It gives you solid foundation to all the other modes as well, and most pieces also include some historical notes about who wrote them, where they come from, etc. You'll receive materials each week via email with the pieces. We'll be learning as well as translations from playing manuals dating back around the 1600s. Lessons are held at 5 a.m. Japan time every Monday, Sunday evening for those in the US. Um, and high resolution videos of each lesson are provided via YouTube for those who aren't able to attend the live Zoom sessions or if they want a review of it afterwards. So I have the purchase links in this here. So check that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
and if
so Laurent corrects me. I say it is the summer mode, but it literally means the golden bell. So all of them, all of those, like the Chinese names, they all have specific translations where, like golden bell, or all these other like terms that go along with them that are very very poetic. But typically, at least when I hear them, like when I hear Oshiki, I think summer mode, right? But not necessarily the specific pitch, golden bell.
Interesting. Yeah, for those of you who are not familiar, the Hitiyogiri is kind of a precursor to the Shakuhachi, and the sensei and also Nick Hokobolando, who's a friend of the studio, have been teaching classes on it and kind of trying to revitalize the Hitiyogiri, which kind of had fallen out of use by just about anybody until just what 2 years ago, year and a half ago. You guys started this.
Hmm.
Yeah, so there's kind of a reclaiming of a historical instrument that had kind of faded from use. So if you want to be part of that history, check that link out. All
Um,
right. So since
mhm.
this question was about your biggest challenge with the shakuhachi at the moment, what is your biggest challenge with the shakuhachi at the moment, Sensei?
Um, so my biggest challenge with the Shakuhachi right now is that I'm um becoming a little bit bored with my sound. And so, because I've been using the same instrument for such a long time, I'm finding myself wanting something a little bit different. So, and actually, instead of using my normal 1.8, this Giotti flute here, I've actually been using my this Jinashi one instead a lot more. I also had Yozan. I commissioned him to make me a couple new flutes as well, to just get something that is a little bit different. And that's yeah, that's just something that was that I probably is my biggest struggle right now is being happy with the tone colors that I'm producing.
Yeah, I can understand. Why would anybody be happy with, just the biggest, most gigantic row on earth? Why would anyone be satisfied with that, Sean?
I mean, there's louder flutes than mine out there. There's a lot louder flutes, especially with. Well, I won't mention certain names of things, but what happens is that with shakuhachi, if you want to get a much louder flute, you need a flute that has a much deeper utaguchi. So this utaguchi here is probably about 3 millimeters, 3 millimeters deep. This one here is probably 2.5. Yeah, probably about 2.5 millimeters. So the sound on the Jinashi is a little bit less, but there are people who make the Utaguchi cuts down to 4 millimeters. And what happens when you do that is that you lose the ability to control the softer tones better. So your louders get louder, right? And they get bigger and more obnoxiously big to the point where it really is, it's like an impressive sound. But then that's all you get. You get nothing else but big old sound. So
Fall of Mine says, "I'll trade you my Taiwan made 2.4 for your Susadake 1.8."
deal. Bet.
Bet.
You just have to pry it from my cold dead hands and then
Yeah, I mean, I've played your flute, and your flute is incredibly nice, incredibly easy to play, and incredibly like responsive, and all the things you look for in a flute.
Mhm.
But I honestly, I find your flute to be uh like more than I want to try and handle. Like it I don't know. It
Mm.
feels like if it feels like well, I've talked about this before. At a certain point in your training, you'll get a nicer flute, and then you realize that the flute is way better than you are.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel when I play your flute. I'm always like,
Yeah,
oh,
I
there's so
think
much more.
so when I got the flute, I mean I got it now like almost 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. That would be 20 what year would that? So if it's 2018, 2018 is when I got it. So it's 2025. Yeah, 7 years ago, right? So that's where yeah, and so because I've grown so much with the instrument and I've had it adjusted multiple times. Like the inside of the bore I've had adjusted. I've had things, messed around a little bit to be more of my liking, with fixing the inside of the bore shape, and it's gotten better and better over the years. But it's the exact same sound that I've been producing with it for so long that it's just time for something else. But I'm on that hunt and I haven't found anything. Well, I did find something, but it's not for sale. So that's usually how those things go. We have a question from Dat Guitar. After you
Yes.
decided to go for shakuhachi, what was the very first step you took to get the whole learning adventure started? How did you get started living in Japan? Well, my whole entire thing, it's like I didn't really decide that I was going to do this like shakuhachi. It wasn't like that kind of situation. Um, I just picked it up as a passing fancy. And then it became sort of more serious just because all of those paths got kind of set up and I just met the right people at the right time. The same thing with Japan is that Japan just kind of happened spontaneously because it wasn't actually my intention. But when COVID hit, everything shut down, obviously. We remember that. And then I was like, well, I can't do anything in America for the next couple years and for a long time. So it's going to be starting all over again. Why not just do it in Japan this time? And that's why I went to Japan and decided to, have a career here, just start over here rather than starting over in America because I thought it would be a lot more difficult to do that, and I was right. But now, I can go back and forth between both countries because I still have a career and I still have connections in America where I do events, performances, concerts, and stuff, and then I also do things here in Japan, events, performances, concerts, and stuff.
Yeah, I ended up living in Japan because my wife worked for a company that was producing manga and web comics, and they wanted her to be in Tokyo, like close to the base, rather than be a remote worker all the time. And so they presented us with a multi-year work visa, and that's what brought us to Japan. And of course, after we had lived in Tokyo for a while, we decided that we wanted to get out a little more into the country, what they call in Japanese in Naka. And so we ended up moving out here, not 45 minutes from Sean's house.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother live stream, right? We
Oh
could
yeah.
talk hours about living in Japan, as living in the city as opposed to living in the country, and the good sides and the bad sides to living in Japan. But if you are passionate about Japanese culture and the Japanese experience, yes, coming to Japan is a real eye opener, and it really helps put things in perspective. I have to honestly say, if you're passionate about the shakuhachi, it's not just living in Japan, it's living near your teacher.
Mm,
Because living in Japan, I mean, I lived in Tokyo for 2 years, and my shakuhachi experience was not significantly different than living in the United
mm,
States or Vietnam or Mexico. These are all countries I've lived in while studying, because I was still just taking my lessons online. Now that I live close enough to my teacher that I can take my lessons in person, that's when real big growth started to happen. And also, Sean just wants me to help him clean his garden.
that's
So,
true. That is true.
but yeah, so if you're curious about that, that's something we could touch on in a future live stream.
Oh yeah.
The pros and cons. Although we don't want to dissuade anybody. If your dream is to come to Japan, then by all means do it, because Japan is fascinating and fabulous place, and the food is great, the girls are
Mm.
pretty, and it's awesome. But I honestly don't think that it necessarily guarantees a great shakuhachi experience unless you take the extra step of living close to your instructor.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I would just say, yeah, living closer to your teacher is going to make a much bigger impact.
Yeah, even
But
if your teacher
mhm,
lives in, Idaho, right? If
yeah,
you live closer to your teacher, that's going to make a bigger impact than
absolutely.
just absorbing the air in Japan.
Mm. All right. Well, I think that brings us to a close. So, like this video, subscribe, and Linus, take us out.
Don't forget to join us on Discord and continue this discussion on things shakuhachi, hitiogiri, and particle physics. Um,
That's right.
I'm really sad we didn't get a quantum physics question today. So bring those questions to us on Discord, and until then, row for 10.